Hello there. This is Roberto Matthews again. Well, this time I'm not giving you a tutorial or anything like that, although I am kind of going to give you a tip. Um, I noticed after watching the GOP debate, the last debate that was last night actually, that there was a lot of talk about the Constitution and the 10th Amendment and what we can do about this thing and the other thing. And I was with a group of friends to watch this second debate here. And I turned to one of the friends and he was kind of had an inquisitive look on his face. And we're all about 30. We're kind of Generation Xers and in our late 30s, actually. We're pushing 40. And I talked to him or I looked towards him and I noticed that he didn't know, he had like this question mark on his face about, the 10th Amendment and what they were kind of mentioning and stuff like that. And so I read that off of his face. And during a commercial break, I said, it was kind of interesting how they were talking about the 10th Amendment and the blind states' right to make laws and stuff like that. And then he kind of looked at me and said, "Do you know what the 10th Amendment is?" And so he didn't know, and and I wasn't. I was trying not to be judgmental. You try to be sensitive to this situation, but I kind of was a little stern with him because as voters, as a person who pays his taxes, as a person who's been voting for the last 20 years, I'm really adamant that people need to know what they're, voting about, why they're doing things, and, be a little bit astute as to what's going on. And I'm sure most of you out there would agree with me. But how can we defend the Constitution as United States citizens if we don't even know the Constitution? And I agree that the preamble to the Constitution and all the 27 amendments are difficult to go through. I mean, they're difficult to read. It's kind of very legalistic. It tries to touch on all kinds of things. But if I'm going to be a good parent, and if I'm going to be a good citizen of the United States, if I'm going to be a good friend, if I'm going to be just a good person, I need to know the law. I need to know just a cursory knowledge, just to know what's out there, what the law says. So I took it upon myself to go and Google it. I mean, anyone could do this, but you got to have interest first. And I went ahead and downloaded a PDF of the Constitution, which is only 2 pages, a 2-page copy of the Constitution. And all it has on it, and it's a summary of the whole Constitution. It has the preamble in it, and it tells you all the lines of the preamble. And for example, it says, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union and establish justice." And then right after it, it says a little connotation, and it says, "Make good government and laws." So it tells you exactly what that line of the preamble means, and it goes on and on. So for example, it'll tell you what are the first articles of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, of course, and then it tells you what all the other amendments are, all 27 of them, and it tells you, for example, the Third Amendment: soldiers cannot take or live in a person's house, and it tells you the year it was created, 1791. So, for those of us who are of the Republican persuasion, and and I and I I'm going to try to be very careful and not say, you should be Republican, you should be Democrat. Look, you're an American citizen. And as an American citizen, you pledge allegiance to this flag. And you also abide by the law. So if you don't know the law, not only can you not abide by it, but it could be abused. You can be abused because you don't know what's going on. So if you don't know that the 10th Amendment, just one line says here, "Any powers that the Constitution does not give to the federal government belong to the states," also created in 1791. Then you don't know what that conversation about marijuana is, where that stems from, what the law on abortion and how that supersedes everything that goes on from state to state. You don't know what the conversation is about, and if you're not astute as to what the conversations are about, then you can't really partake in the conversation. And if you don't partake in the conversation, then you feel there's no interest in what's going on. And if there's no interest in what's going on, then you don't know how to vote. You don't know how to vote correctly. And look, I'm a black male born and raised in Mid City, New Orleans. And I had no father because my father died before I was born. I had no mother because my mother abandoned me after I was born. So, by the kindness of her heart, my paternal grandmother raised me. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I didn't have, privileges growing up. Okay, I didn't have any privileges growing up. I wasn't, in the best neighborhood. I didn't have everything afforded to me that a lot of people do. But in spite of all that, my grandmother knew, and not only that, she wasn't even born here. She came here from Cuba in 1970, and she didn't even know a lick of English. So the point I'm trying to make is knowing what I can do to make myself a better citizen of the United States by knowing the Constitution and knowing what I can and can't do and how far the government can push me or not push me, then I could make a better life for myself. I could make a better life for my family, and I could make a better life for my immediate neighborhood, which is all we want. I mean, I don't want to do anything in Syria. I personally don't want to do anything in Israel. I personally don't really want to worry about what's happening in Germany or China or anything like that. It affects me probably in the long run or indirectly, but I'm worried about what my kids are going to go, where my kids are going to go to school, what my kids are going to eat tomorrow, what I'm going to do with my wife at the end of the week. What are we, that's what I'm worried about. So if the government starts to infringe on my personal liberties, I need to be able to stand up for those personal liberties. And I need to know the 15th Amendment, for example, all U.S. male citizens have the right to vote. And I need to know that there is a constitutional law, which is called the 16th Amendment, that says Congress can tax income, which allows me to know that, okay, tax, maybe not the IRS so much, but taxing me is legal. I can't fight against that. That's something that, I mean, I could and try to, become a senator and all that, but I need to know what's going on in my Constitution. I need to know, for example, the articles of the Constitution. It says that they have three main parts of the government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Um, the first article of the Constitution says that the legislative branch makes the laws. The second one, executive branch, is the president, vice president, and they carry out the laws. They don't make the laws. They just carry out the laws. They enforce it. The third article, the judicial branch, says that they decide the court cases. So on a case-by-case basis, they decide based on the law that's made by the legislative branch. Well, we've gone haywire just because we don't know those first three articles of the Constitution. Okay, so I highly recommend that I'm going to give you a link to the PDF file that I'm using, and I would highly recommend that if you're a citizen of the United States, okay, if you're a citizen of the United States, to print this PDF file and to post it on your wall, on your kitchen refrigerator, on your kids, if they're teenagers or even younger, on their wall, on your own wall. Take a look at the Constitution. It's only 2 pages. It's something that you should read. You shouldn't be worrying about what's happening on, I wanted to say MTV, but that's way old. What's happening on Facebook, what's happening on The View, on what's happening on all these other things, Big Brother and all whatever. You should be worried about what's happening in the United States if you're a United States citizen. That's all I ask. Print this Constitution, the summary of the Constitution, and read through it. Teach your kids about it. Are they going to be able to be good citizens of the United States if they don't read or know the Constitution? How can they vote when they're 18 if they've never been shown the Constitution? So it's something I want you to just think about. I'm a U.S. citizen. I know my constitutional rights. You should know your constitutional rights. Just know it. Just have a cursory knowledge of it so that whenever people are trying to infringe on it, our own government sometimes, you can make a stand because, of course, knowledge is power. That's a cliche, but it's a very true one. And lack of knowledge is weakness. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Have a wonderful day.